Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views and analysis. WIONews.com. World is one.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground? At Gravitas, we don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground? At Gravitas, we don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared.
Last bulletin. Tune in to these times to WION World is One for your daily news and updates. The top stories for you are:
US President Joe Biden is in Belfast on a 4-day visit. Amid protests and warnings of disorder, there's massive security in place. The IMF's economic forecast for 2023 lists the United Kingdom as among the worst performing major economies. Leaked US documents claim 50 British special troops have been deployed for the war in Ukraine. Tune in at these times on WION World is One.
Hello there, very good morning and welcome to WION. You're live with me, Katie Pilbeam, in London. Here's your headlines. Myanmar military justifies deadly airstrike, says civilians were killed because they were being forced to help terrorists. Nearly 100 people, including children, were killed in an attack on village gathering organised by the military's insurgent opponents. US judge denies Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes' request to remain free on bail while she appeals her conviction. Holmes was sentenced to over 11 years in prison for defrauding investors with her Silicon Valley startup. Taiwan's ruling party picks its chairman, William Lai, as presidential candidate. Well, Lai, who is also the vice president, is to deliver his vision speech today. Twitter is roughly breaking even again as most of its advertisers have returned. This is according to Elon Musk himself. In an interview to the BBC, Musk terms the reported ad decline the cyclical nature of ad spending, some of which was political. Manchester City take a big step towards Champions League semi-finals with a
Manchester City have a 3-goal lead to take to Bavaria and Pep Guardiola's old Stamford.
To our top story this hour then, and US President Joe Biden is in Northern Ireland. He's on a 4-day visit to mark the 25 years of the Good Friday Agreement, which ended 30 years of bloodshed. Well, later today, Biden will address students at the Ulster University campus in Belfast. He is expected to emphasise US willingness to preserve the Good Friday Agreement itself and how the US administration can support Northern Ireland's economy. Well, later, Biden and Sunak will meet. Biden is also to engage with each other on the leaders of Northern Ireland's 5 main political parties. According to police officials, around 300 officers from across the UK would be in Northern Ireland over a 2-week period to provide specialist support. Well, this includes specialist escort officers, firearms specialists and search specialists as well. Recently, the UK spy agency MI5 raised Northern Ireland's terrorism threat level to severe. Well, the major issue for UK authorities remains the security situation in the region, as the police events are expected to cost around £7 million. Well, this comes after police warned of a potential public disorder, which are linked to the disapproval of the deal by Republicans. Earlier, a group of masked protesters attacked a police vehicle with petrol bombs as they oppose the Good Friday Peace Accord. After a half-day visit in Northern Ireland, Biden, who is fiercely proud of his Irish heritage, will then travel to the Republic of Ireland for almost 3 days of meetings with officials and distant relatives as well. However, Biden will not visit the Northern Ireland Assembly instalment. The Assembly, which was established as a result of the Good Friday Agreement, is not functioning currently, as Democratic Unionist Party is boycotting the power-sharing rule. Well, the DUP is opposing the post-Brexit rules, and that's exactly what we will be talking about just now with our guest, Klinsman Marathi, international affairs expert and founder and CEO of the London-based World Affairs research consultancy, Pareto Economics, joins us now from London. Okay, I believe we've got technical issues with our guests. We'll get back to that one shortly. But in the meantime, let's join our correspondent, Alex Isaac, who's joining us live from the British capital today. So a huge 3 days in store for Northern Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Rishi Sunak has been there since the beginning, since Biden's plane landed. He really wants to show that he is a powerhouse here as well, alongside Joe Biden, the US president. They're going to meet later and have talks. Of course, Rishi Sunak has his own agenda, wanting to push forward the Windsor framework when it comes to the Northern Ireland Protocol going forward. Now, what should be very interesting is what Biden was really coming over to do, because of course he believes that he was part of that Good Friday Agreement 25 years ago and feels that he should be over there today and this weekend to talk about all of the things that have changed since then, and he really wants to put himself forward. And of course then he is going over to Ireland, the Republic of Ireland itself, to go and see his ancestors as well. So for him it's a bit of a journey to look over the politics but also get his own roots. What would have been a great, of course, if Stormont was sitting at the moment, but they don't look like they will be coming back. And even though a lot of those within Ireland and Northern Ireland want to look going forwards to bringing that back together and was hoping that Biden's visit will at least bring the five parties closer, it doesn't look like that is going to be happening. And of course there are many who still want the reunification of Ireland completely, and Biden has made some kind of statements across his own campaign about thinking that that is the right way forward. But the DUP has said that they don't really believe that Biden does mean that, and he is quite adamant that Brexit was the right thing to do. So, of course, Sinn Féin has said this morning, and some of their leaders have said that this would be great if he could try and push things forward. DUP has said it's not likely to happen. So at the moment, all we're seeing is this nice shaking hands throughout Ireland, Northern Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland as well. And Rishi Sunak will be there. So pushing forward potentially the Windsor framework and hoping to stand firm on all of that Good Friday Agreement, despite some of those scenes that we've seen, the petrol bombs, also the pipe bombs that were found in a cemetery. Those are still small events compared to what has been previous to this signing of this Good Friday in 1998.
Okay, Alex Isaac, thank you so much indeed from London for us. And I believe we're going to go to our guest now. Also joining us from the British capital today is Klinsmann Marathi, international affairs expert and founder and CEO of the London-based world affairs research consultancy Pareto Economics. A very good day to you. I hope you hear me now. So how significant is Biden in Northern Ireland then?
I think, to be honest, this is more of a symbolic significance, because the US can really do very little in order to broker some sort of agreement post-Brexit between the Republic, Northern Ireland, and the capital here in London, because they simply don't have the leverage to do anything about it. Biden has mentioned before that Brexit was a good idea. I don't think those semantics play very well to what he's trying to do now as sort of a broker of sorts in Northern Ireland, despite his sort of ancestry. I don't think that's going to be enough to have the US be a major player in this agreement, because this is simply, I think, irresponsible politics from the Brexiteers without considering what the ramifications Brexit would have had in the peace, stability in Northern Ireland. So I think this is great for photo opportunities, but apart from that, I don't think he'll get much time.
Okay, tell us more about those ramifications that you just mentioned there.
Well, you have to understand that the 1998 Good Friday Agreement was almost a model for how to do peace talks across the world, and it was a very successful one at that. And post-Brexit, we see a lot of things happening, especially when it comes time to a frictionless border being disrupted, so trade relations being disrupted, and also given the fact that London is playing a big role in the sort of in the trade relations in Northern Ireland, something which both Sinn Féin and the DUP have issues with in their own particular ways, which is why the DUP now is boycotting Stormont from engaging in politics in Northern Ireland. And naturally, that's the political figurehead. And below them, in terms of civil society, there's a lot of discontent amongst the moves that London is doing within Northern Ireland. And this is like a powder keg about to explode type of thing, because historically we know how sensitive politics has been in Northern Ireland. And the culmination of 25 years of peace agreements to now looks like it can be unraveled with this irresponsible politics that we're seeing there as well.
Okay, Klinsmann, we really appreciate your expertise. Thank you so much indeed. International affairs expert and founder and CEO of the London-based World Affairs research consultancy, Pareto Economics. Thank you.
Thank you.
The International Monetary Fund's global economic growth outlook for 2023 had some bad news for the UK. Well, Britain is forecast to be among the worst performing major economies as the overall global growth outlook falls to 2.8% this year, over 3.4% in 2022. Now, the IMF predicts the UK economy will shrink by 0.3% in 2023. This will be the worst among the world's 20 biggest economies, known as the G20. Well, this includes sanction-hit Russia. A 1% growth is predicted for next year. Earlier, the Washington-based lender already predicted what it called a rocky road ahead for the global financial system, and that Britain will be at the bottom of the pile of the G7. IMF researchers say the primary reasons are high gas prices, rising interest rates, and slow trade performance. Well, reacting to the IMF's prediction, UK Chancellor Jeremy Hunt says that the IMF's growth forecasts have been upgraded by more than any other G7 country. The organisation had previously predicted a growth of 2.9% for 2023 this January. However, due to chronic high inflation, rising interest rates and uncertainty in the banking sector after the collapse of SVB, Signature and Credit Suisse, the IMF have decided to temper its expectations. Well, meanwhile, IMF chief economist says high inflation may remain until 2025.
Inflation is still with us, and core inflation in particular has not started to come down significantly back towards the target. In fact, in our report we now say probably won't be until the end of 2024, maybe into 2025. So it's going to take some time. This is why we're saying, look, as long as the financial risks are contained, central banks should stay the course.
Well, in the UK, inflation is at its highest in nearly 40 years. The Bank of England has been raising interest rates, and the latest increase puts that at 4.25%.
Granted.
The amount of help the UK has given to Ukraine is no secret. Since the beginning of Russia's offensive in Ukraine, UK and its leaders have been the most vocal ally of Ukraine. But the leaked US documents show it's not just the money or weapons that the UK is providing to Ukraine. It may also be deployed at least 50 special forces in the country. A trove of documents detailing US and NATO's military support to Ukraine have purportedly been splashed across social media. Well, the documents reveal the depth of America's spying apparatus around the world, detailing how the US continues to infiltrate allied nations amid heightening global tensions. According to reports, the documents suggest that more than half of the Western Special Forces personnel present in Ukraine between February and March in 2023 are British. UK Ministry of Defence says the leak demonstrates a serious level of inaccuracy. However, it is still unclear how many and which type of operations the Special Forces were engaged in. The UK's elite military forces comprise multiple units, including the Special Air Service, the Special Boat Service as well, and the Special Reconnaissance Regiment. Well, the leaked documents appear to have come, at least in part, from the Pentagon and are marked as highly classified. They offer tactical information about the war in Ukraine, including the country's combat capabilities. It reportedly contains charts and details about weapons deliveries, battalion strengths as well, and other sensitive information. Well, the documents also paint a portrait of depleted Russian military that is struggling in the war and of a military apparatus that is deeply compromised, while also discussing the gains made by Russian troops around the eastern city of Bakhmut. But moreover, the leak has the potential to do real damage to Ukraine's war effort. That by exposing which Russian agencies the US knows the most about and giving Moscow a potential opportunity to cut off the sources of information.
Good evening, everyone. Military and humanitarian assistance.
Russia forces have pounded frontline cities in the eastern Ukraine with airstrikes and artillery attacks. Ukrainian forces, who have repelled several of these attacks, say that Russia is bent on taking the control of the Bakhmut city. Russian military is also targeting the city of Avdiivka. The commander of Ukraine's ground forces has said that Moscow is using scorched earth tactics. More details in our next report.
Fighting raged in the frontline cities in eastern Ukraine Tuesday as Russian forces launched airstrikes and artillery attacks. Footage from a Ukrainian soldier's body cam video, released by the Border Service, showed fighters launching rocket-propelled grenades and shooting rifles in the destroyed yard of a house, purported to be the besieged city of Bakhmut. Ukrainian officials said its forces repelled dozens of attacks as the Russian military kept up its effort to take control of Bakhmut. The battle for the small, now largely ruined city on the edge of Russian-controlled territory in Donetsk has been the bloodiest of the war as Moscow tries to revive its campaign after recent setbacks. Both sides have suffered heavy casualties in the Bakhmut fighting. Near the front line, under the cover of darkness, medical volunteers loaded wounded soldiers into a bus converted into an ambulance to bring them to a hospital in the city of Dnipro. Maria, a 23-year-old volunteer paramedic, told Reuters that during a 2-week rotation, she and her team evacuated hundreds of wounded soldiers.
This bus has been operational for around 2 months, so we evacuated nearly 600 people. This bus makes a whole difference as it saves people's lives.
Tens of thousands of soldiers have been killed and wounded on both sides of the conflict since Russia invaded Ukraine last year. The ambulance effort involves rotating teams of volunteers who spend several weeks on call, ready when injured soldiers need transport from the front line. Both trained medics and volunteers without a medical background serve.
It is very important for me because I have a connection to what we are doing. I work in the field, which I know, and where I am confident that I will do my best. Each of us has a mission, and this is my mission.
Donetsk is one of 4 provinces in eastern and southern Ukraine that Russia declared annexed last year and is seeking to fully occupy. Last week, President Volodymyr Zelensky said troops could be withdrawn from Bakhmut if they ran the risk of being encircled. Kiev and the West say the smashed city has only symbolic importance.
Okay. Switching direction now, should we say, because do you remember Karl Lagerfeld's cat, the Choupette? Well, years after Lagerfeld's death, his beloved cat has been formally invited to the Met Gala. Oh, yeah. Well, known for receiving a portion of Lagerfeld's estate, the cat has now been formally invited to this year's grand event. Well, according to Choupette's agent, the theme of this year's costume exhibition is Karl Lagerfeld, a line of beauty, and Choupette is obviously a central part of the legacy of him, so inviting her was of utmost importance. Well, some are speculating that Choupette could be the star of the red carpet at the annual gala, which will take place on May the 1st. Well, the feline became part of Lagerfeld's life in 2011. Lagerfeld agreed to cat-sit Choupette, who then belonged to the model Baptiste Capicoli, and he ultimately adopted the cat. But that was not all. Lagerfeld helped Chipette become a fashion icon. The late designer arranged modelling gigs and product collaborations as well for her. She also became an active social media user. All throughout their time together, Lagerfeld spoke about the fluffy feline and often spoiled his pet by providing her with 2 maids and a personal driver. Well, keeping all of this in mind,